Imagine the following scenario. You're at home and suddenly half the people in the world start disappearing. It would be a desperate scenario, wouldn't it? In this video we will explore the possible consequences of erasing half of humanity from the face of the earth. Subscribe to the channel and like the video for more content like this. Take the opportunity to suggest the theme for the next video below in the comments. Number 1. Global chaos. The sudden disappearance of half of the population would plunge the world into immediate chaos. Families would be torn apart, with spouses, parents, children, and siblings suddenly vanishing without explanation. Communities would be left reeling from the loss of friends, neighbors, and essential workers. Infrastructure would be strained as transportation systems, utilities, and essential services struggle to cope with the sudden decrease in manpower. Emergency services such as police, fire departments, and medical responders would be overwhelmed by the surge in calls for assistance. Supply chains would be disrupted, leading to shortages of essential goods such as food, medicine, and fuel. Panic buying and hoarding could exacerbate the situation, causing further strain on available resources. Communication networks would be flooded with messages of confusion, despair, and attempts to locate missing loved ones. Social media platforms would be inundated with posts searching for answers and offering support to those affected. Governments would be caught off guard, scrambling to maintain order and provide assistance to their citizens. Emergency protocols would be activated, but the sheer scale of the crisis would test even the most prepared nations. Number 2. Economic instability. The sudden disappearance of half of the population would create significant economic turmoil on a global scale. With a massive reduction in the workforce, businesses across all sectors would struggle to operate at full capacity. Labor shortages would lead to disruptions in production and services, causing supply chain bottlenecks and shortages of essential goods. Industries heavily reliant on skilled labor, such as manufacturing, healthcare, and technology, would be particularly hard hit. Unemployment rates would skyrocket as businesses scale back operations or close down entirely due to the lack of manpower. Job losses would compound the already dire situation, further exacerbating economic instability. Consumer demand would plummet as households grapple with the loss of income and uncertainty about the future. Discretionary spending would decline sharply, leading to a contraction in consumer markets and a decline in business revenues. Governments would face immense pressure to stabilize the economy and prevent widespread collapse. Stimulus measures, monetary policies, and emergency aid programs would be implemented to support businesses and individuals affected by the crisis. However, despite these efforts, the global economy would likely enter a severe recession or even a depression, characterized by stagnant growth, deflationary pressures, and widespread financial distress. Number 3. Social unrest. The sudden disappearance of half of the population would trigger profound social unrest and upheaval across the globe. The emotional shock and trauma of losing loved ones, friends, and colleagues would lead to widespread grief, anger, and confusion. Families would be shattered, with those left behind grappling with feelings of abandonment and loss. Communities would be destabilized as they struggle to come to terms with the scale of the tragedy and support each other through the grieving process. The scarcity of resources, combined with the breakdown of social structures, could lead to conflicts over food, water, shelter, and other essentials. Desperation and fear could drive some individuals to resort to violence or criminal behavior in their quest for survival. Social divisions and inequalities would be exacerbated, with vulnerable populations disproportionately affected by the loss of loved ones and the economic fallout. Tensions between different social, ethnic, and economic groups could escalate as they compete for resources and opportunities. Governments would struggle to maintain law and order in the face of widespread unrest and civil disobedience. Emergency measures such as curfews, martial law, and mass arrests may be implemented to restore order, further eroding civil liberties and exacerbating social tensions. However, amidst the chaos and turmoil, there would also be acts of resilience, solidarity, and heroism as communities come together to support each other and rebuild in the aftermath of the catastrophe. Number 4. Political turmoil. The sudden disappearance of half of the population would plunge governments into a state of unprecedented turmoil and instability. Leaders would find themselves grappling with the aftermath of Thanos' actions and the immense challenges they present. Initially, there may be confusion and panic as governments try to ascertain the extent of the catastrophe and establish lines of communication with remaining allies and international partners. Emergency meetings and summits would be convened to coordinate a response. Political leaders would face intense pressure from their constituents to provide answers, reassurance, and solutions to the crisis. Failure to do so could lead to widespread distrust, civil unrest, and even challenges to their legitimacy. In some cases, governments may collapse entirely under the weight of the chaos and public backlash, leading to power vacuums and potential conflicts over succession. Authoritarian regimes may exploit the crisis to consolidate power and suppress dissent, further eroding democratic norms and institutions. International relations would be strained as nations grapple with the fallout from Thanos' actions and the geopolitical implications of the crisis. Cooperation and diplomacy would be essential to address shared challenges such as economic instability, security threats, and humanitarian crises. However, geopolitical rivalries and tensions could also intensify as nations compete for dwindling resources, strategic advantages, and influence in a world thrown into disarray. Number 5. Technological setbacks. The sudden disappearance of half of the population would lead to significant setbacks in technological advancement and innovation. Skilled professionals across various fields, including scientists, engineers, researchers, and technicians, would vanish, leaving critical projects and initiatives incomplete. Research and development efforts in sectors such as medicine, renewable energy, space exploration, and information technology would be severely hampered by the loss of key personnel. Laboratories, research institutions, and technology companies would struggle to fill the void left by their departed colleagues. Collaboration and knowledge-sharing networks would be disrupted, hindering progress on scientific breakthroughs and technological innovations. Many projects would be put on hold indefinitely, delaying the development of new technologies and solutions to pressing global challenges. The loss of expertise and talent would also impact industries reliant on specialized skills, such as aerospace, biotechnology, and computer science. Without skilled professionals to drive innovation and advancement, these industries would experience stagnation and decline. Education and training programs would be disrupted as universities, technical schools, and vocational training centers grapple with the loss of students, faculty, and staff. The loss of future generations of scientists, engineers, and innovators would have long-term consequences for the advancement of technology and knowledge. Governments and private organizations would need to invest significant resources in rebuilding the scientific and technological workforce, fostering talent development, and revitalizing research and development efforts. International collaboration and cooperation would be essential to overcome the setbacks and accelerate progress towards technological advancement and innovation. Number 6. Cultural impact. The erasure of half the population by Thanos would have a profound cultural impact, reshaping societies and identities around the world. Cultural heritage, traditions, and customs passed down through generations would be irrevocably altered by the loss of individuals and communities. Many cultural practices and expressions, including languages, art forms, rituals, and folklore, would be at risk of disappearing or undergoing significant transformation. The loss of storytellers, artists, musicians, and other cultural practitioners would deprive communities of their creative voices and expressions. Cultural diversity would suffer as entire communities and ethnic groups are decimated by Thanos' actions. Indigenous cultures, minority groups, and marginalized communities would be disproportionately affected, leading to the erosion of their unique identities and contributions to global cultural heritage. The absence of half the population would also leave a void in the cultural landscape, with landmarks, monuments, and institutions abandoned or neglected in the aftermath of the catastrophe. Historic sites, museums, libraries, and archives would struggle to preserve and protect cultural artifacts and records for future generations. Grief, trauma, and loss would become central themes in cultural production, influencing literature, film, music, and other forms of artistic expression. Stories of survival, resilience, and hope would emerge as individuals and communities seek to make sense of their new reality and find meaning in the midst of tragedy. Efforts to rebuild and revitalize cultural life would be essential to preserving cultural heritage and fostering a sense of belonging and continuity. Communities would come together to honor the memories of those lost and celebrate the richness and diversity of human culture in the face of adversity. Number 7. Environmental changes. The erasure of half the population by Thanos would bring about significant environmental changes, both immediate and long-term. While the sudden reduction in human activity may initially lead to short-term improvements in certain environmental indicators, such as air and water quality, the overall impact would be complex and multifaceted. Abandoned infrastructure, buildings, and vehicles left behind by the disappeared population would lead to localized environmental degradation and pollution. Hazardous materials, chemicals, and waste may be left unattended, posing risks to ecosystems and public health. The disruption of supply chains and industrial activities would result in decreased emissions of greenhouse gases and pollutants in the short term. However, the long-term implications for climate change and environmental sustainability would depend on how societies adapt and recover from the crisis. Changes in land use and agricultural practices may occur as abandoned farmland and urban areas are reclaimed by nature or repurposed for alternative uses. This could lead to shifts in biodiversity, habitat loss, and changes in ecosystem dynamics as species struggle to adapt to new conditions. Wildlife populations may experience fluctuations as ecosystems respond to changes in human activity and resource availability. Some species may thrive in the absence of human disturbance, while others may suffer due to disruptions in food chains and habitat fragmentation. Efforts to rebuild and recover from the crisis would present opportunities to adopt more sustainable practices and technologies. Investments in renewable energy, conservation efforts, and ecosystem restoration could help mitigate the environmental impacts of Thanos' actions and build a more resilient future. Number 8. Healthcare crisis. The sudden disappearance of half the population would trigger an immediate and overwhelming healthcare crisis of unprecedented proportions. Hospitals, clinics, and healthcare facilities would be inundated with patients, stretching resources and personnel to their limits. The loss of healthcare workers, including doctors, nurses, and other essential staff, would exacerbate the strain on healthcare systems. The remaining healthcare professionals would face immense pressure as they struggle to provide care for the increased number of patients. Medical supplies, equipment, and medications may become scarce as demand outstrips supply. Critical treatments and procedures could be delayed or rationed, leading to unnecessary suffering and preventable deaths. Public health efforts to control and contain infectious diseases would be compromised by the chaos and disruption caused by Thanos' actions. Vaccination campaigns, disease surveillance, and outbreak response efforts would be hampered by the loss of personnel and resources. Mental health services would be in high demand as survivors grapple with grief, trauma, and psychological distress. Counseling, therapy, and support networks would be essential to help individuals and communities cope with the emotional toll of the crisis. Vulnerable populations, including the elderly, children, and people with chronic illnesses or disabilities, would be particularly at risk during the healthcare crisis. Access to essential healthcare services and medications may be limited, exacerbating existing health disparities and inequalities. International cooperation and assistance would be crucial to address the healthcare crisis on a global scale. Aid organizations, governments, and healthcare providers would need to work together to coordinate resources, support affected communities, and mitigate the impact of Thanos' actions on public health. Number 9. Global cooperation and conflict. The erasure of half the population by Thanos would catalyze a complex interplay of global cooperation and conflict as nations grapple with the aftermath of the catastrophe. Initially, there may be a sense of solidarity and unity as countries come together to address the immediate humanitarian crisis and provide aid to affected regions. International organizations such as the United Nations, World Health Organization, and various relief agencies would mobilize resources and coordinate response efforts on a global scale. However, as the scale of the crisis becomes apparent and competition for dwindling resources intensifies, geopolitical tensions may escalate. Nations may vie for control over strategic assets such as food, water, energy, and territory, leading to conflicts and power struggles. Disputes over borders, resources, and access to aid may erupt as countries prioritize their own interests and security in the face of uncertainty and scarcity. Diplomatic relations may become strained as mistrust and suspicion abound in the international community. On the other hand, there may also be opportunities for cooperation and collaboration as countries seek to address shared challenges such as economic instability, environmental degradation, and public health threats. Multilateral agreements and alliances may be forged to pool resources, expertise, and technology in pursuit of common goals. Efforts to rebuild and recover from the crisis would require sustained cooperation and coordination among nations, as well as a commitment to addressing the root causes of instability and inequality. Diplomacy, dialogue, and negotiation would be essential tools in navigating the complex geopolitical landscape shaped by Thanos' actions. Number 10. Psychological trauma. The erasure of half the population by Thanos would inflict profound psychological trauma on survivors, communities, and societies worldwide. The sudden and indiscriminate loss of loved ones, friends, and colleagues would leave deep emotional scars that would take years, if not generations, to heal. Survivors would grapple with a range of intense emotions, including grief, guilt, anger, and profound existential distress. The sudden disappearance of half of humanity would shatter perceptions of safety, stability, and predictability, leading to feelings of profound vulnerability and existential dread. Children and adolescents, in particular, would be profoundly affected by the loss of parents, siblings, and peers. The disruption of family structures and social support networks would have long-lasting consequences for their emotional and psychological development, leading to increased rates of anxiety, depression, and post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. Communities would struggle to cope with the collective trauma of losing significant portions of their population. Rituals, ceremonies, and memorials would be held to honor the memories of those who vanished, but the process of mourning and grieving would be complicated by the lack of closure and understanding surrounding the events. Mental health services would be overwhelmed as survivors seek support and counseling to cope with the psychological aftermath of the catastrophe. Therapists, counselors, and mental health professionals would play a crucial role in providing care and support to individuals and communities as they navigate the complex terrain of grief and trauma. Efforts to rebuild and recover from the psychological trauma of Thanos' actions would require a comprehensive and sustained approach to mental health care, including destigmatizing mental illness, expanding access to counseling and therapy, and promoting resilience and coping strategies at individual and community levels. Subscribe to the channel and like the video for more content like this. Take the opportunity to suggest the theme for the next video below in the comments. See you in the next video.